get yourself a copy of the current issue of Savoy magazine. If you want to know who the House Negroes are, they've got more than 100 of them proudly displayed in this Savoy magazine that's out right now. Anyway, these House Negroes emulate Skull and Bones so much, and because they couldn't be members of Skull and Bones, that's why they created the boule. Now, this was before George Bush was trying to get blacks in, but I'm saying back in the days of W.E.B. Du Bois and all them, because they only care about the so-called talented 10%. The rest of the Negroes, they don't represent you. Never have and never will. Seriously, I'm just calling a spade a spade. Those are the House Negroes. And usually they're mulatto or quadroons or octoroons or whatever. And they're angry at me because they consider me a talented 10%, but I don't kiss nobody's ring, and I don't kiss nobody's butt. Now, white Masons, they all think I'm some reincarnated Mason, but, that's a show for another day. So, brother, what I'm trying to tell you is, with all this that's going on in the country today, get that magazine, Savoy, and you will see names of people like in charge of stuff like Pfizer, pharmaceutical, and it's a CEO that's a colored boy whose name you never even heard of. Because back in the 90s, they were grooming they were grooming me. I just didn't kiss the ring and sell my soul. So during the Clinton years, when they were grooming all these buppies, black yuppies, and most of them now live in Atlanta, that's the boule headquarters. Now they've secreted themselves in certain positions and offices, especially they love black women. Why? I can hire 2 white females. Because if I hire a black female, I just kill 2 quarters with 1 stone. And she ain't thinking black. She's like a Stacey Dash. She's living in a predominantly white neighborhood behind closed gates that you'll never be able to come to. That's what's going on in this country right now, Mr. Nelson.
Wow. Wes,
and, by the way, and that's who's leading most of the continent on Africa. Because when there's a conscious black person who was supported by somebody like Castro, that person got taken out, replaced by somebody who the U.S. and the European whites wanted in office. You pay them off, and they screw the mass majority of the population of the country because a certain elite in that country, they get money paid off, and 80% of the profits go to the British or the U.S. corporations. And it's not just British. The Dutch were doing this colonization long before the U.S. was even in existence. But that's what's going on. But I know we're running on time. I got to shorten these responses, so let's move on.
All right. We got to take a break, right? 800-450-7876. I mentioned we got to take a break. We got to take our last look at the traffic and weather in the DMV. Folks, you want to speak to Mark from Anaheim, reach out to us. Again, that number is 800-450-7876. We'll take your calls next on FM 95.9 and AM 1450. WOL, where information is power. And thank you for staying with us and our guest, Mark from Anaheim, 800-450-7876. Let's go to line 1. Kiki's from Iowa.
Mr. Nelson.
Yes, sir.
We didn't finish. So what I'm trying to tell a brother is, you can have your opinions you want about the Bush family, but just let me enlighten you on facts. I told LAPD more than a year before it happened that the 4 cops involved with the beating of Rodney King would be found not guilty, and you would see the largest riots in U.S. history. And I told you, Mr. Nelson, and I remind you again, on the last time I was on this show, after the riots, in that following November, I went to a spook convention where 3 guys in suits got on the elevator with me and goes, "Hey, you're working for LAPD now, huh?" I go, "Yeah." "What'd you think about the riots?" I go, "Anybody with a brain the size of an earthworm could tell there was so much propaganda out there setting up the riots." And these 3 guys got off the elevator and looked at me and goes, "Well, you tell Daryl Gates and your boys we ain't done with you yet." You folks don't even realize very little in U.S. politics happens by accident. Even the cops, they're more manipulated than you are. And they don't listen and they don't read anything but certain, so they don't, Oh, by the way, Mr. Nelson, I had a retired LAPD cop, one of my former LAPD recruits, just send me a Facebook message this past weekend saying, "When the Civil War starts, I will be in his rifle sights." So what I'm trying to tell you as far as Bush goes, Bush was never a conservative. Bush is a moderate. The Reagan family, there's no love lost between them. Reagan was forced to carry Bush as his running partner if they had any chance of beating Jimmy Carter. And even when that didn't help them, they just went over to Iran and sabotaged the deal that Jimmy was trying to make to free the hostages. And, you know, the Marine hostages were held long enough so Jimmy Carter couldn't get reelected. These same folks are back in the White House, Mr. Nelson. Not the necessarily president or the vice president, but people behind the scenes telling them what to do, like Ollie North. So what I'm just trying to tell you is, during the 1992, whether you want to call it a civil unrest, a riot, a rebellion, call it what the hell you want it. If it not been for Daddy Bush, there would have been a whole lot of dead black folks and a whole lot of dead brown folks, because these John Birch Society members wanted Daddy Bush to send the Marines into L.A. and kill U.S. citizens. That's one of the reasons why he didn't get reelected, because Bill Clinton, who's his cousin, by the way, would have done it. Those Marines were sitting down here at the long-gone Long Beach Naval Base. I was the first LAV platoon commander, light armored vehicle. I helped create the doctrine and tactics for the LAV in the Marine Corps. So I know what an LAV can do. They had all these brand new LAVs from Camp Pendleton staged at the Long Beach Naval Base waiting to go in LA to kill the Negroes and kill the Mexicans. And Bush said no. So whatever you think you might know about Bush, you may not know. So I don't want to belabor this, Mr. Nelson, but I just want to say one last thing on this. I mentioned Savoy. For you folks out there, get yourself a copy of the 17th anniversary Savoy magazine, spring 2018. The most influential blacks in corporate America. If you folks want to know who the house Negroes are, you want to know who the boule is, you want to know who the house Negresses are, you need to get yourself a copy of the spring 2018 issue that has Chadwick Boseman on the cover, Hollywood's newest star that rise. And then you'll know who's selling you out to be part of the globalization. And the last thing on this, Mr. Nelson, guess who they have an article in here about? The first Starbucks in Jamaica. So since we're talking about Starbucks today, there's some, synchronicity here. They have an article about how happy they are that Starbucks is now in Jamaica in that Savoy magazine, spring 2018.